Welcome back to the show, everybody. You're going to love what we got for you this morning. How about this? Africa plus cross-border payments equals Ripple and ODL. Oh, don't believe me. Believe Andrew Witworth from Ripple Policy of MENA. Somebody roll that beautiful intro.
Digital Perspectives with Brad Kimes. Come on in.
Welcome back to the show, everybody. You can follow us on Twitter and YouTube for exclusive content. Right now, the market is $1.17 trillion, and the market is up 1.8%. Good morning, everybody. I'm still getting it together. My time zones are still messed up. Bitcoin, 26,800 plus. It's off by 8.3 on the 7-day, up 1.7 on the 24-hour. Almost the same here, off by 6.5 on the 7-day and up 2.2 on the 24-hour. It's $1,800 and change here for Ethereum. Tether market cap is 82.8 billion plus. Nobody knows what to do with their crypto, so they're moving into Tether. But what does the U.S. government really feel about it? Is it something that was taken over by the government long ago? We don't know, but we should soon find out. XRP is 42 cents. It's off by 0.4% on the 24-hour, and we're off by 7.5 on the 7-day. Ladies and gentlemen, some of the best opportunities to invest in this space are the private equity companies behind the technology. And we're talking about fintech. We're talking about digital assets. We're talking about artificial intelligence. We're talking about copper just being added, which is almost, I'm going to oversimplify this, but I see this as like another poli-sign over in the EU. Right? That's how I see this, right? So make sure you check all of these things out. Click the link for the sponsor. How much longer till a ruling on the Ripple case? And if we get the clarity we're looking for, how much longer till they IPO and have a public exit like Brad Garlinghouse says they intend to? Click that link. Right here, Michael Brandt says newly released data from the Federal Reserve shows more than 700 American banks facing significant safety and soundness risks due to massive unrealized losses on their balance sheet. Now, listen, I say this, and I am urging you. If you have not checked out Glint, yes, it's a sponsor, but I was a customer first. And you know what? I was a customer for the reason of this article that I'm reading. Because I do believe there is going to be another long line of banks that don't make it. And in that case, ask yourself if the stock market can suffer such a collapse underneath of it like that. Because when people lose their money, they have to go to their assets in their portfolio to get liquid again, which then means you get a run on the banks, you get a run on the stocks, you get a run on other things, right? And it just becomes cascading and systemic if we're not careful. So click the link to Glint and find out what it's all about, because it's really about having your own bank in your own hands without the banking system involved in it. Be your own bank backed by physical gold that you really own. Click that link. I'm telling you, you will not be sorry that you did. Here we see a video clip here from Thinking Crypto and Ron Hammond, who we always appreciate. Let him tell us what's going on here. Shout out to Tony for this clip here.
Let's talk about Coinbase and their lawsuit against the SEC and the push for regulations, because we had the Chamber of Commerce, and not to be confused with the Digital Chamber of Commerce, but the Chamber of Commerce that existed before crypto, advocacy for businesses across the United States in multiple industries. They filed an amicus brief on behalf of Coinbase, which is, I think, pretty groundbreaking. Once again, nothing to do with crypto. What are your thoughts around that?
Yeah, for those who don't know, the U.S. Chamber of Commerce is a powerhouse here in D.C. Their office is literally right across the street from the White House. They are a massive organization, massive resources, really great minds over there. And a lot of folks probably don't know this, but behind the scenes, they've actually been involved in crypto legislation and lobbying for quite some time. Actually, even when I was a Hill staffer back in 2017, 2018, wow. I worked with the Chamber of Commerce on the Token Taxonomy Act, getting some ideas, got actually an endorsement on that bill from them. But again, they've been usually a little quiet. So for them to go and back Coinbase here is a huge move. It's also a stiff to the SEC, showing that, hey, actually American businesses are siding with Coinbase here. This idea that they're out of compliance, we disagree with. But also from again, from a traditional perspective, we're backing up a crypto company, which is, on the cutting edge of this technology side. So it's a pretty added characteristic for the U.S. Chamber, but I think it's very welcomed. And it shows, again, the SEC is really on the island by themselves here. And they think the rules are clear and Coinbase is out of compliance. You talk to anyone else, TradFi or in crypto, the rules are not clear. And it's very obvious that the SEC is by themselves on this.
That is a key point to make, and not that we didn't know it, but to hear these association representatives say these things, or to have someone like Hester Peirce say that we're wandering around in the desert like we covered yesterday. SEC Commissioner Peirce, also nicknamed Crypto Mom, spoke at Financial Times. MiCA, the EU laws, can serve as a model for us. And look, we also know from the time when Michelle Bond worked at Ripple that they cited the UK as well as a leader and someone to follow when it came to regulation on digital assets and crypto broadly. So, we're seeing these like, hey, there's these beacons of light that we could be using to find our way through the room here. Look, I think it's as simple as this, too. Hester Peirce's safe harbor rule could put all of this whack-a-mole to rest. Okay, you come in, you register. You've got 3 years that you need to adhere to ABC 1, 2, 3, and at the end of the 3 years, the determination will be made that either you met these watermarks and you are now going to be a commodity, yada, 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 or something else, virtual currency, or you will be a security forevermore, right? It shouldn't be this difficult. So it obviously feels completely intentional. But nevertheless, we are moving through this, and this is what's happening now. If you remember very quickly in Congress, back when the left side of the aisle had control of Congress, there was a bill that was worked on, a bipartisan stablecoin bill between Patrick McHenry and Maxine Waters. And it was good to go, but they didn't push it through. But it was there, and everybody was happy with it. However, the right side of the aisle gains control. They make a few changes to the provisions, and all of a sudden, then the House says, no, you got to start back at scratch. You remember when Maxine Waters says that, right? So now we're at this place here. Let me give you just the highlights of what is really going on here. So the House committee leaders had neared a compromised version last year, but they didn't manage to introduce it. Isn't that interesting? Which to me, and that's political speak for this, and I'm going to speculate here, but this is how I see Congress. The real money that controls Congress is lobbying money. So at the end of the day, the way I see the reason it didn't get introduced is because the ones that were in control, the left side of the aisle, were serving their lobby base and lobby money, right? Do you claim to the people that it's for their protection and none of this stuff is safe? That's how you sell it to the people. But what you're really doing is appeasing the lobby dollars that you've taken on throughout the course of your term. And really what it looks like is this right here. So we work like we're going to put it through, and then we don't put it through because the lobby money, who's the two biggest lobby donors? It's pharma and banks, right? Some of the two biggest lobby donors on the planet. And it's hard to figure out why this thing hasn't gone through yet. It finally saw the light of day ahead of a hearing on the issue last month. It's documented that the committee's leaders are now pulling in different directions. Isn't that odd? No. When Republicans on the committee released a discussion draft that included some of the most recent ideas, it gave strong authority to the states to continue regulating stablecoin issuers. So the difference here is that the Dems want to keep it at the Federal Reserve level, and the Democrat version would give the Federal Reserve upfront veto power over the registration of those issuers, a point that's sure to be contentious in the ongoing debate. So the Republicans want to give the power to the state level, right? And they want to keep it at Federal Reserve level, which, by the way, is a private central bank and not a branch of the government. According to the person familiar, the new Democratic version of the bill has a greater focus on the consumer protection issues and would not allow non-bank stablecoin issuers to tap Federal Reserve programs. So immediately, companies like Ripple and others would not be allowed, Circle, I should say, because this is over stablecoins. So, Circle would not be able to tap into Federal Reserve programs, which to me looks like a way for the Democrats to put up a force field that doesn't allow private issuers to be able to access the Federal Reserve programs, which is the largest money. This is what I see taking place here, and it's sad. Both efforts on both sides of the ball, by the way. Both efforts share common ground in defining payment stablecoins as a specific classification on digital asset type. The Democratic proposal also continues to call for a moratorium on algorithmic stablecoins, which I think is a good idea, a stipulation that the Republican counterpart dropped. And I don't think they should drop it because so far algorithmic stablecoins have not proven to be very stable, especially when you have a run. So, and maybe they could change the structure of how you back those. I don't know. But nevertheless, up until now, it hasn't worked out. But here we see something that I want to point out very quickly here before we move on. And it's this, Bakkt. Bakkt is owned by the Intercontinental Exchange. The Intercontinental Exchange also owns the New York Stock Exchange. I happen to believe, and have said since Bakkt became Bakkt, that I believe Bakkt will be the New York Stock Exchange for the new digital asset space once we're on the other side of clarity. I also believe that this mass delist of tokens, including AVA, Avalanche, Compound, Filecoin, MakerDAO, and Uniswap, among others here, is really a way for Bakkt to remain the lion in the bush. It does not want any attention from the SEC or any regulator in a negative light. I believe they are sitting there doing everything they can to be prepared for a post-regulation world. That's what they're waiting for. And I believe when they do, you're going to see this all of a sudden, hey, you know what? Bakkt is right here. This looks like a great solution, guys. And all of a sudden, Bakkt will be up and running. I feel like that is exactly what we're going to see, amongst other things. I'm oversimplifying this greatly, but it's for the macro talk today, right? And I think they're sitting there waiting like a lion in the bush to be able to make their way to the fore because they have stayed away from any negative attention from any regulator thus far. However, here is Andrew Witworth, shout out to him, Policy Director EMEA at Ripple here, talking about cross-border payments, Ripple, and on-demand liquidity in Africa, baby. Yeah, I like hearing it, and you're going to as well. Shout out to Andrew. Take a listen here.
With North America coming in, and then close third is actually Africa. So we've got 54 countries sitting in Africa, right? Whilst MiCA may be awesome in the EU and regulations coming up in North America, we actually need something fit for purpose in Africa. And that's what we at Yellow Card are actually trying to build, that rails and network within Africa, because it's a very different use case. The utility of cryptocurrency, virtual assets is very, very different in Africa. How do you see that playing out day to day, Andrew, in your world?
Yeah, and I think that's a very important point. This is a very global industry. It's not just the US, even if it maybe started there 10 years ago or so. And I would echo a lot of what Cedric just said, particularly around the problems of regulation by enforcement compared to what I was talking about earlier, a comprehensive, clear regime that you can build on. And I, again, would echo a lot of Angela's points around that. To your point specifically on Africa and its adoption of crypto, I think this is fairly obvious, and it goes to what Aina was saying earlier. The important thing is for each government or authority to decide what objectives, what policy objectives it has for the crypto sector in its own country. It could be, for example, improving remittance flows, which is something, as I said, that Ripple helps with, or it could be to drive financial inclusion or to enhance and grow the domestic financial sector. Ultimately leading to economic growth. Of course, you can have multiple objectives too. Once that's decided, then you decide how to regulate it and what the robust or comprehensive regulatory regime should look like to allow this to happen. For us in Ripple, given the nature of our business, cross-border payments, of course, the interesting aspect of crypto usage in Africa is the payments use case. We have a product called On-Demand Liquidity, ODL. I don't know if any of the audience saw my colleague Brooks speaking yesterday. We're excited about the opportunities this presents for the continent. We've got a partnership with MFS Africa, which we're using to expand our presence in the region, to scale our business alongside local partners as digital payments and crypto adoption grows. And as you all know better than I do, digital payments innovation in Africa has been evolving at a really rapid rate, which is why obviously we're interested in doing more business in the region.
Hello.
But this is for a number of reasons, right? This is fast population growth. This is digital payments usage already. This is mobile payments. And actually in crypto adoption by consumers, Africa's world leading. Instead of using crypto for speculation purposes, as is often used elsewhere, many people in Africa are turning to crypto to make peer-to-peer payments and as a way to preserve wealth. So this is quite an interesting set of use cases, all of which is doing what, as I said in my introduction, Ripple wants to do, which is helping to move value cross borders and cross currencies where necessary. So Africa's a great opportunity, and it has an opportunity to be a great trailblazer and to leapfrog the West, as it did earlier with mobile payments.
Amazing, amazing, amazing. When you think about how big Africa is and how much potential exists, I'm going to tell you right now, that is so exciting to me, and I hope it gets you the same way it does me. Now, let's take a look at this from Megrad Crypto here. He says, red, green, blue. Let's take a look at it. Please refer to February 23 and March 31st, 23. Posts are better for clarity. He says, but I always try to make my charts very simple so anyone can anticipate the next move via visuals, since the average Joe does not need to be an expert in TA to understand what is going on. That's why we love this guy. Below the chart is still rhyming with the previous cycle to the teeth. It says here, expecting XRP to shock everyone. If we just take a look at this and where we're at here, you can see previous history shows a moment like this where ultimately we saw a breakout. So in other words, that scenario is very similar up here in this little window. Is it guaranteed? Absolutely not. But the window is here. So we should all be paying very close attention in case we get a like kind result. That's where we're at today. Not financial advice from me or anyone else, just my digital perspectives. I'll catch all of you on the next one.